Hi, my name is Angela Jeffries Lamb, and today I will be discussing a one-group pre-test, post-test program evaluation of an intervention called MyPlan. I would like to take a moment to thank Dr. Kathy Ely, who created the intervention and has been my supervisor at my internship for the past year. The MyPlan intervention is used at Pickerington Local School District, which is located in Central Ohio and serves 10,002 students in grades kindergarten through 12th grade enrolled in the 2018-19 school year. Pickerington is considered a middle to high income suburb of Columbus, Ohio. The graph to the left shows demographic information about students at PLSD. As you can see, majority race is white at 59%, and Black or African Americans are represented at 25%. Other minorities are represented at lower rates. Additionally, students with disabilities make up 15% of the student population, 3% are English learners, and 2% are economically disadvantaged. Participants in this study were 22 students in Pickerington's district who were identified as chronically absent. The definition of chronic absenteeism, or truancy, will be discussed in the next slide. In the table to the right, you can see that the participants in this study are very closely represented by race and the same percentages of the total school population. Participant race included white students at 55% and Black students at 27%, and so on. Federal laws define truancy as students who miss 15 or more days of school in a year. Ohio laws require school districts to start implementing attendance interventions with students who miss 30 hours or about 5 days of school. The U.S. Department of Education reports that approximately 6 million students in the U.S. are chronically absent each year. These statistics are staggering and show a widespread problem across the U.S. Research shows that truancy is a good predictor that the student would be unlikely to read at grade level and are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. Later in life, statistics show truancy is linked to poverty, declining health, and involvement in the criminal justice system. The goal of the MyPlan intervention is to alter students' attitudes about attending school, increase their knowledge of truancy laws, and decrease absences from school. The MyPlan was created by Dr. Kathy Ely to effectively use solution-focused therapy approaches in a way that is most effective in the school setting. MyPlan is considered evidence-informed. It is a brief intervention using worksheets with questions that motivate students to address absenteeism, create their own goals, and allows it to be completed in a shorter period of time. It is intended to be used in the school setting over 4 consecutive sessions. This is the logic model that guided this study. I completed a literature review to find the best practices for addressing truancy in schools. Some of my findings included an evidence-based article by Inia and Dapanu, who conducted a non-randomized pilot study to evaluate the use of motivational interviewing and solution-focused therapy to reduce truancy among adolescents. The results showed a significant decrease in school absences for the experimental group compared to the control group after the intervention. Overall, the results suggest that using SFT to reduce truancy among adolescents may have significant results. 5 other research articles were discussed in my literature review as well, which were considered some other best practices for interventions for truancy. However, most of the studies were limited because of challenges with small sample sizes and lack of controlled and equal groups. Supfin reviewed these last 5 articles and stated that it should be noted that there is insufficient empirical data on this topic and that these findings are the strongest but cannot be accepted as evidence-based literature. My measurement plan consisted of collecting data during the pre-intervention sessions, during the intervention, and at post-intervention sessions. In the pre-intervention, attendance records were reviewed, and I recorded how many missed hours of school for the participants over 3 months prior to the intervention. Next, a school refusal assessment scale was administered to help students understand the underlying problems that contribute to their absences, behaviors, and low grades. The SRAS consists of 16 questions and is rated on a 7-point Likert scale ranging from never, which is 0, to always, which is 6. The highest scoring condition is considered the primary variable for the student's school refusal behavior. The test-retest reliability on this scale is n equals 24. A consent form was also requested since the participants are under age 18. During the intervention, the My Plan utilizes a 10-point Likert scale that measures the student's perceived progress on their goals. 0 is awful, and 10 is they met their goal. In the post-intervention, I again reviewed attendance records for 3 months after the intervention to determine if students had decreased absences. The program evaluation design is a quasi-experimental comparison group design with pre-test, post-test comparisons. While utilizing this group design, the evaluation had non-randomized control trials. Some threats to this study's internal validity were that non-random trials allow for more questions as to whether there may be factors other than the treatment that have influenced the outcomes. Although non-randomized control studies have lower internal validity, it would be unethical to withhold treatment in the school setting. I would also need a more practical convenience sample, since this evaluation occurs within a practice setting. And finally, I believe this intervention was the best practice for the school setting. My hope and the goal of the data analysis plan was that it would answer program level questions and that it focuses on the impact of my plan on a student group, which was 22 participants, and that it would assess whether it achieved the goals after students completed 4 sessions. And I also reviewed records of attendance before and after intervention, collected worksheets after each session, and recorded scores from my plan scale and attendance in an Excel sheet. Here you can see my findings from the My Plan Likert scale. All the participants rated themselves during 3 pre-intervention sessions, as well as after each intervention session. They also rated themselves at the end of treatment. Initially, I computed the average mean for the pre-treatment sessions, the mean for the post-treatment session scores, and the mean difference between them for all participants. Since these scores are not independent, I used the paired t-test, 2 samples for means, to compare between pre and post values. The p-value obtained for the Likert scores is 0.00, which is less than 0.05. Therefore, the mean increase in scores is a statistically significant difference. I computed a Cohen's d effect size to determine whether there is practical significance of the outcomes and how meaningful those results were. This helped to show whether there was meaningful interpretation of the data and whether it can be used in different settings. The Cohen's d value obtained was 1.83. Using the general rule of thumb for Cohen's d that says that d equals 0.2 is considered to be small effect size, 0.5 represents medium, and 0.8 represents large, my effect size would be considered very large. Therefore, the difference between the scores for pre and post test is practically significant. As discussed earlier, attendance rates were calculated from the school online record system for each participant from September through November 2018 for pretest measures and records from January through March for post-test measures. Initially, I computed the average mean for unexcused missed hours of school prior to treatment, and then the mean for missed hours of school post-treatment, and the mean difference between them. I again used the paired t-test 2 samples for means to compare between pre and post values. The p-value obtained for attendance rate is 0.00, which is less than 0.05. Therefore, the mean reduction in unexcused hours missed is a statistically significant difference. The Cohen's d value obtained was 0.95 effect size. Our value of 0.95 shows a large effect. Therefore, the difference between scores for pre to post is practically significant. The difference between the hours missed from pre to post was practically significant, which really excited me. Since my study provides clear quantitative and qualitative evidence that the MyPlan intervention had an impact on students' improved attendance, it's my conclusion that students in the future may benefit from schools integrating solution-focused practices into their attendance intervention programs. Any effort to improve school attendance in the future should include interventions that address all the factors that prevent students from attending school, as these will have a significant impact on how they address their goals. I believe there are several strengths of this study. First, the results are used to improve the program, which is always important and will make this program become evidence-based eventually. I also think that the ability to easily compare pre and post intervention results and the attendance of the participants is another strength. The non-randomized control trials are also a very practical option for studying the effects of this intervention in the school setting. Since my plan is a strengths-based approach and does not use any punitive measures, it's also positive. These practices utilized include a collaborative relationship between the social worker and student instead of authoritative dynamic, so change comes about through open dialogue that both agree is appropriate. The client is considered the expert in knowing what will work for them, which I have found to be a very positive relationship goal. Some limitations were that the participants were students who had problems of being chronically absent, which created a wedge between the students being accessible to receive services. Other interventions were also implemented at the same time and could have affected the outcomes as well. It limits the validity. Since this design is not randomized, participants' answers on the Likert scale at the end of treatment could be biased towards wanting a positive result. However, I believe that the attendance rates decreasing validates the result that the student perceived themselves at. There were several lessons that I learned from conducting this study. I learned that it's critically important to understand the intervention strategies and how to make adjustments for students who struggle to read or understand written worksheets. My thoughts of how clients positively react to solution-focused approaches and giving the client the power to be their own expert was solidified during this process. I also learned that keeping track of clients' progress through scales can be very helpful to both this worker and the client to show progress and that the intervention is showing a forward motion. If the data does not support forward motion, then this social worker can make adjustments and ensure that the treatment is productive. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I've learned a lot from this year and this project, and I look forward to all of our future. I added a little funny comic strip for your enjoyment. Thanks. And here are my references.